nagbabalik. We are back, Mr. Ambassador. What happened to that mission after the strike? Did they resume? Did they continue the mission afterwards?
So we hope the mission to complete their mission. So they work there. So as far as I know, so I don't have the latest information, but according to information available to me at this moment, so no traces of chemical weapons were found there. Okay. Moreover, I would like to draw your attention to another hard fact. I hope you remember the main purpose of the U.S. Airstrike was to destroy, as it was declared, was to destroy the chemical weapons stockpiles, which are allegedly kept by the government of Bashar Assad. So it was declared after the airstrike that mission accomplished. So all arsenal, chemical weapons arsenal, stockpiles were destroyed. Sorry, where, a very simple, a very naive question. Where are the traces of those chemical weapons? If the so-called chemical weapons stockpiles were destroyed, it means that there must be many people poisoned. Where are those victims? Where are the traces of those chemical weapons? It's a pretext. It's a fake news. It's a pure lies.
So it is like detonating those chemical weapons at once. So will you request for another investigation?
So we'll insist on all necessary investigations because it's our vital interest to investigate everything happened there in a comprehensive and objective, unbiased way. We want to know the truth. What was done by the British side in Salisbury? What was done by the United States and United Kingdom in Syria? So it cannot be, it will never be forgotten, and it will never be forgiven.
Mr. Ambassador, the strike was conducted without any enabling resolution from the UN Security Council.
Yes, it's an obvious, gross, flagrant violation of the UN Charter. But unfortunately, and it was done not for the first time.
But you yourselves have gone to the UN Security Council, filed a resolution asking for an investigation.
Definitely.
And your resolution was shut down.
Right. So I can tell you more. We are always ready to discuss any possibility of the consolidated international reaction to what's happening in Syria. And we have always condemned any use of chemical weapons anywhere in any part of the world. By the way, unlike the United States, Russia has already destroyed all stockpiles of Soviet chemical weapons on our territory. By the way, it was not cheap. It was quite expensive, but the Russian government found money, financial resources to do that, and it was officially confirmed, verified and confirmed by the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. The US side says that they have no money to destroy their chemical weapons stockpiles. The richest country in the world has no money to destroy their chemical weapons stockpiles. So, and a few years ago, as far as I remember, in 2013, so all chemical weapons were destroyed in Syria. And it was verified and officially confirmed by the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. And it was recognized by everyone, by all members of the international community. By the way, the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, so they even received the Nobel Prize.
Yes.
For peace. Can you imagine? So there is no evidence, no proof of of the very existence of chemical weapons in Syria, not on the whole territory of Syria, but in the parts of the Syrian territory which are under control of the government of President Bashar Assad. But at the same time, we have a lot of information confirming that terrorist organizations used many times chemical substances against the Syrian army and innocent civilians. But Western countries refused to investigate all those cases. So it's not in our interest to justify anyone who used the chemical weapons. If it were done by the government of Bashar Assad, we would be the first country to condemn that.
So Russia is holding its punch or punches on this issue.
Right.
Why?
Because it's in our vital interest, because we want to live in a safe world, in the world which is ruled by the international law.
Yeah. Israel is eerie silent on the April 14 attack. What could be the reason?
It was a signal. It was a message to Syria, to Russia, to the rest of the international community, that all members of the international community should accept the monopoly, the dominance of some countries.
Mr. Ambassador, I'd like to talk.
It's a very clear signal, and it's a danger to all of us.
I'd like to talk a little bit about the American reaction. President Trump, who's been under attack for having allegedly won the last election with Russian help, authorized the strike. And yet, the hawks around him apparently felt this was not enough. So there's now some squabbling among the advisors on the issue of what's going to be the real relationship between the U.S. and Russia. Some people have suggested that Trump was given bomb advice in the same manner that Kennedy was given bomb advice by the CIA director in the Bay of Pigs invasion of Cuba in 1961. So there's a problem there. The ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, just announced sanctions against Russia without the authority of Trump, and Trump had to scold her. Said, listen, we're not talking of new sanctions against Russia, but can you see a house divided against itself in the U.S.? And what is going to be the effect of that on U.S.-Russian relations?
Everything you have just mentioned is really troubling. Of course, we are very concerned about that. You draw a parallel between the Caribbean crisis and the current confrontation. What's happening now is really dangerous for all of us. I wouldn't like to discuss the domestic political developments in the United States. I can tell only that our biggest desire is to deal with a solid and predictable government of the United States. The United States, as the most powerful country in the world, must be predictable, and it must be guided by the international law. Unfortunately, what's happening now in Washington, unfortunately, it gives us reasons to think that it's not the case, unfortunately. The bigger the country is, the more responsible it must be.
Well said.
As for Russia, so I'm assuring you that we have been doing and will do our best in order to preserve strategic global peace and stability. So our policy is predictable and responsible.
Mr. Ambassador,
We'll do nothing which can inflict damage on international peace and stability.
I think that's welcome by the international community. Can we go back a little to the defense action undertaken by the Syrian government during the strike? According to the Russian military statement, the missiles were intercepted
Yes, right.
purely by the Syrian defense systems.
You're absolutely right.
Since no missiles entered the Russian area of responsibility, the Russian defense system was not involved.
Right.
Yeah, but
You are well informed.
well, I read stories not only from the Western press.
Yes.
So
A very wise decision.
now, this means that Russia has helped Syria put up the defense systems, trained its personnel, but left it to the Syrians to operate. So you were not involved. And in the interview with Foreign Minister Lavrov by BBC Hard Talk, it became evident that you have what is called the deconflicting channel, which is operational. Russia and the U.S. talk to each other, even in the midst of all this, missile attack, and to make sure that there are no miscalculations. Apparently, this was the hotline that was established after the Cuban missile crisis, and it's working.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is, and it clearly shows that the military of both two sides are more clever, more intelligent, and more responsible than many politicians in Washington.
Okay. We'll go back to that after a little while.